The red and blue lights cut through the darkness like a blade through silence. Officer Marcus Daniels had made this type of stop 1,000 times before, but tonight felt different. The blacked-out Range Rover sat perfectly still on the shoulder, its driver's hands visible on the steering wheel, a detail that should have told Daniels everything he needed to know, but assumptions are dangerous things, and prejudice wears many masks. What began as a routine traffic stop would become an 8-minute journey that would challenge everything Officer Daniels thought he knew about respect, service, and the true meaning of heroism. Before we dive into this incredible true story, hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves respect regardless of how they look, and make sure to subscribe for more amazing stories of honor and courage. Drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment that completely changed your perspective? Let's discuss. Officer Marcus Daniels had been patrolling Route 44 for nearly a decade, and his instincts rarely failed him. The luxury Range Rover with tinted windows seemed out of place in this part of town at 11:30 p.m. And when it accelerated slightly past the speed limit, Daniels saw his opportunity. The traffic stop began like countless others, routine, procedural, almost mechanical in its familiarity. As Daniels approached the vehicle, his hand instinctively rested near his service weapon, a habit born from years of unpredictable encounters. The driver's window rolled down smoothly, revealing a young black man in his late 20s, dressed in a simple grey hoodie. His hands remained perfectly positioned on the steering wheel, his posture calm and respectful, his eyes meeting Daniels, gaze without challenge or defiance. "Good evening, sir," the driver said, his voice steady and clear. "I believe you pulled me over for speeding. My license and registration are in the glove compartment if you'd like me to retrieve them." There was something different about this man, a composure that seemed almost military in its precision, a respect that felt genuine rather than forced. But Daniels' assumptions had already begun to form, shaped by years of preconceived notions and unconscious bias. Lieutenant Commander James "Ghost" Washington had been through this before. Not the traffic stop itself, but the weight of being judged by his appearance rather than his character. As a Navy SEAL who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and saved countless American lives, he understood that his service record meant nothing to a police officer who saw only skin color and expensive wheels. He remained calm, not because he was resigned to prejudice, but because his training had taught him that composure often spoke louder than words. The irony wasn't lost on him. Just 6 hours earlier, he had been in a classified briefing at Naval Special Warfare Command, planning operations that would protect the very communities where he now sat being questioned about car ownership. His trident pin, the sacred symbol that marked him as one of America's elite warriors, lay hidden beneath his hoodie, invisible to eyes that had already decided who he was based on superficial observations. Washington's mind briefly wandered to his team members, wondering if they ever faced these moments of quiet humiliation. His white teammates could drive luxury vehicles without question, their success automatically attributed to hard work and achievement rather than criminal activity. But for Washington, success came with suspicion, achievement came with skepticism, and respect had to be earned over and over again, one encounter at a time. "So, you really own this car, or is it stolen?" Officer Daniels asked, his voice carrying the weight of assumption disguised as routine inquiry. The question hung in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon, acrid and lingering. Daniels had asked similar questions hundreds of times before, but tonight, something in the driver's response would begin to crack the foundation of his prejudices. Washington's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only visible sign that the question had found its mark. "Yes, sir, I own this vehicle," he replied, his voice maintaining its steady cadence despite the insult embedded in the question. "I purchased it 18 months ago after returning from my last deployment. The paperwork is all in order, and I'm happy to provide whatever documentation you require." The word deployment should have been a clue, a hint that this traffic stop was about to become something entirely different. But Daniels, locked in his assumptions, heard only what he expected to hear. Another story, another excuse, another attempt to explain away what he had already decided was suspicious. The Range Rover's interior was immaculate, the driver's demeanor respectful and compliant, But prejudice has a way of filtering out inconvenient truths. As Daniels ran Washington's license and registration, the SEAL sat quietly in his vehicle, his mind drifting to memories that few civilians could comprehend. 3 years ago, he had been crouched in the mountains of Afghanistan, coordinating a rescue mission that would save the lives of 12 captured soldiers. His team had moved through enemy territory for 18 hours straight, carrying wounded teammates and fighting off insurgent attacks, all to bring fellow Americans home safely. The medal citations in his apartment told stories of extraordinary valor, a Silver Star for actions under fire, a Bronze Star with V device for heroic achievement, and countless commendations for operations that would remain classified for decades. Yet here he sat, being questioned about his right to own a vehicle that he had purchased with money earned through blood, sweat, and unwavering service to his country. Washington's phone buzzed with a text from his teammate Rodriguez. Drinks at Murphy's to celebrate the mission's success? The irony struck him. His brothers-in-arms were celebrating another successful operation, while he was being treated like a criminal for driving while black. But this was his reality, the constant duality of being simultaneously America's protector and America's suspect, depending on the uniform he wore or didn't wear. 8 minutes into the stop, everything changed. As Washington reached into his glove compartment to retrieve additional documentation, his sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the edge of a tattoo that would transform this encounter forever. The trident, the sacred symbol of the Navy SEALs, caught the beam of Daniels' flashlight like a beacon cutting through darkness. Officer Daniels froze, his eyes locked on the unmistakable image of the eagle, anchor, trident, and flintlock pistol that marked this young man as one of America's most elite warriors. The trident tattoo wasn't just ink on skin. It was a testament to trials that broke most men, a symbol earned through Hell Week, extreme training, and proven valor in combat situations that most people couldn't imagine surviving. The weight of realization hit Daniels like a physical blow. This wasn't just any driver. This was a Navy SEAL, a guardian of American freedom, a warrior who had voluntarily placed himself in harm's way so that others could sleep safely at night. The expensive Range Rover suddenly made perfect sense, purchased not with ill-gotten gains, but with hazard pay earned in the world's most dangerous places. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of understanding and shame. Officer Daniels stared at the trident tattoo, his mind racing through the implications of what he was seeing. Every assumption he had made, every question he had asked, every moment of suspicion suddenly felt like a betrayal of the very person who had sworn to protect him and his family. "Sir," Daniels said, his voice barely above a whisper, Are you a Navy SEAL?" The question came out with a mixture of awe and embarrassment, the reality of his mistake beginning to dawn on him. Washington looked up from his paperwork, his eyes meeting Daniels' gaze with a quiet dignity that spoke volumes about his character. "Yes, Officer Daniels," Washington replied, reading the name tag with the same attention to detail that had kept him alive in combat zones. "Lieutenant Commander James Washington, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. I've been serving for 8 years." The words hung in the air like a bridge between two worlds, one of service and sacrifice, the other of assumptions and prejudice. What happened next would stay with both men for the rest of their lives. Officer Daniels slowly removed his hat, a gesture of respect that transcended protocols and procedures. "Sir, I owe you an apology," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I made assumptions tonight that I'm not proud of, and I treated you in a way that dishonors your service and sacrifice." Washington studied the officer's face, seeing genuine remorse and recognition rather than empty words. This was the moment that separated good men from great ones, the willingness to acknowledge mistakes, to grow from them, and to become better. "Officer Daniels," Washington said, extending his hand through the window, "we all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after we recognize them." The handshake that followed was more than a gesture of forgiveness. It was a moment of human connection, a bridge built across the divide of prejudice and assumption. Two men, both sworn to serve and protect, found common ground in the darkness of a traffic stop, that had become something much more meaningful than either had expected. As the encounter continued, both men found themselves engaged in a conversation that neither had anticipated. Daniels learned about Washington's service, his deployments, and the brothers he had lost in combat. Washington learned about Daniels' 20-year career in law enforcement, his own struggles with bias and his genuine desire to serve his community with honor and fairness. "I've seen too many good cops make the same mistakes I made tonight," Daniels admitted, leaning against the Range Rover in a posture of respect rather than authority. "And I've seen too many good people hurt by those assumptions. Tonight, you could have let me continue in my ignorance, but you chose to educate rather than embarrass. That takes real strength." Washington nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. "Officer Daniels, I've served with men and women of every color, background, and belief system. What I've learned is that character isn't determined by appearance. It's revealed through actions, especially in difficult moments. Tonight, you showed your character by admitting your mistake and choosing to learn from it." The traffic stop that should have ended after 5 minutes stretched into 30, becoming an impromptu lesson in humanity for both men. Washington shared stories of his service, not the classified operations, but the personal moments that had shaped him as a man and a warrior. He spoke of teammates who had made the ultimate sacrifice, of families who had lost their heroes, and of the weight of carrying the trident. "Every time I put on this uniform or see this tattoo, I'm reminded that I represent something bigger than myself," Washington explained. "I represent every SEAL who came before me, every SEAL who serves beside me, and every SEAL who will come after me. That's a responsibility I don't take lightly, whether I'm in a combat zone or sitting in traffic." Daniels listened intently, his perspective shifting with each word. He began to understand that his assumptions hadn't just affected one man, they had disrespected an entire legacy of service and sacrifice. The Range Rover, the expensive watch, the calm demeanor, all of it made sense when viewed through the lens of understanding rather than suspicion. As their conversation drew to a natural close, both men understood that this encounter would extend far beyond this moment. Daniels made a commitment that night to examine his own biases, to train his fellow officers about unconscious assumptions, and to approach every interaction with the same respect he would want for his own family members. "I want to ask you something," Daniels said as Washington prepared to leave. "Would you be willing to speak to my department, not as someone who was wronged, but as someone who chose to build bridges instead of walls? I think we could all learn from your example." The request surprised Washington, but he recognized the sincerity in the officer's voice. "I'd be honored to speak with your department," Washington replied, "but not just about this encounter, about service, about respect, about seeing the person behind the uniform or the car or the appearance. These conversations are uncomfortable, but they're necessary if we want to build the kind of community we all deserve." 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Commander Washington stood before a room full of police officers, sharing his story and his perspective. The presentation wasn't about blame or shame, it was about growth, understanding, and the power of recognition. He spoke about the Navy SEAL ethos, about earning respect through actions rather than demanding it through rank, and about the importance of seeing beyond surface appearances. Officer Daniels introduced him that day, sharing his own story of assumptions and awakening. "This man could have filed a complaint, could have embarrassed me publicly, could have made my mistake the end of my career," Daniels told his colleagues. "Instead, he chose to educate, to forgive, and to help us all become better officers and better people." The impact was immediate and profound. The department implemented new training protocols, community outreach programs, and bias recognition seminars. What had begun as a traffic stop became a catalyst for positive change that rippled through the entire organization and into the community it served. 6 months after their encounter, Officer Daniels and Lieutenant Commander Washington found themselves on the same stage again, this time at a community recognition ceremony. Washington was being honored for his military service, while Daniels was being recognized for his efforts to improve police-community relations. The irony wasn't lost on either man. Their paths had crossed in darkness, but had led to light. "True honor," Washington said in his acceptance speech, "isn't about the medals we wear or the recognition we receive. It's about the choices we make when no one is watching, the bridges we build when walls would be easier, and the grace we show when we have every right to be angry. Officer Daniels showed me that honor isn't limited to the military. It exists in anyone who chooses courage over comfort, growth over grudges. Daniels, when he spoke, credited Washington with teaching him that real strength comes from admitting weakness, real authority comes from serving others, and real change comes from uncomfortable conversations. Their friendship, born from a moment of tension, had become a symbol of what was possible when people chose understanding over assumption. The relationship between Washington and Daniels evolved beyond professional respect into genuine friendship. They began meeting regularly, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for training sessions, where Washington would share tactical insights with Daniels' SWAT team, and sometimes just to talk about life, service, and the challenges of wearing uniforms that carried the weight of public expectation. "You know what I've realized?" Daniels said during one of their conversations. "We're both warriors, just fighting different battles. You fight enemies overseas to protect our freedom, and I fight crime at home to protect our communities. But we're both servants, both protectors, both trying to make the world a little bit safer for the people we love." Washington smiled, recognizing the truth in his friend's words. "The trident teaches us that we're all connected. The eagle represents our country. The anchor represents our naval heritage. The trident represents our ability to fight on sea. Land and air, and the pistol represents our readiness to defend what matters. But maybe there should be a fifth symbol, something that represents the bridges we build with people like you." As their story spread through social media, news outlets, and community gatherings, Washington and Daniels found themselves reluctant but important voices in national conversations about race, policing, and respect. They didn't claim to have all the answers, but they offered something more valuable, a real example of how prejudice could be transformed into partnership through honest dialogue and mutual respect. Their joint presentations became popular at police academies, military bases, and community centers across the country. They shared the stage not as victim and perpetrator, but as two Americans who had found common ground in their shared commitment to service. Their message was simple but powerful. See the person, not the stereotype. Choose curiosity over assumption. Build bridges, not walls. Every traffic stop is an opportunity, Daniels would tell new officers, an opportunity to protect, to serve, to connect, or to divide. The choice is ours, and the consequences reach far beyond the moment. Washington would add, every interaction is a chance to honor the uniform you wear, whether it's military or civilian. We represent something bigger than ourselves, and that's both a privilege and a responsibility. Today, the story of Officer Daniels and Lieutenant Commander Washington continues to inspire change in police departments, military units, and communities across America. Their friendship stands as a testament to the power of humility, the strength of character, and the possibility of transformation that exists in every human encounter. Washington still serves as a Navy SEAL, still protects America's interests around the world, and still carries the weight of the trident with pride and honor. But he also carries the memory of a traffic stop that became something beautiful, a reminder that even in moments of tension and assumption, grace and understanding can prevail. His Range Rover still gets looks, but now they're looks of respect from officers who know his story. Daniels continues to serve his community, but with a deeper understanding of the trust placed in him and the impact of his assumptions. He keeps a photo on his desk, him and Washington shaking hands that night, illuminated by red and blue lights that once seemed threatening, but now represent the possibility of connection across any divide. Every traffic stop is different now, approached with curiosity rather than assumption, respect rather than suspicion. Their story reminds us that heroism isn't just about what we do in extraordinary moments. It's about who we choose to be in ordinary ones. It's about the grace we show when we could choose anger, the bridges we build when walls would be easier, and the respect we offer when prejudice would be simpler. In a world that often seems divided, the friendship between a police officer and a Navy SEAL offers hope that understanding is always possible, change is always achievable, And honor can be found in the most unexpected places. What moment in your life challenged your assumptions and changed your perspective? Have you ever experienced a situation where understanding replaced prejudice? Share your story in the comments below. And let's continue this important conversation about respect, service, and the power of seeing beyond.